Hello guys and welcome back to another interesting Bloons TD Battles 2 video by the real other user. Today we are gonna do something different, like a balanced suggestion wish list that we want to do to fix the game's flaws. I have done a balance showcase video on PvP about a year ago, so I'm bringing something similar like this back, but for Bloons TD Battles 2 instead. So what are we waiting for? Let the video commence. So the first balance suggestions I want to mainly focus around is obviously crosspathing, because I know some of you guys may disagree with me, but I feel like the game's always stale when there's only one viable crosspath for every individual tower. Plus, I'll make a tier list video very soon on all of the crosspathing upgrades very soon, which excludes path 1 and path 2 upgrades, since that's not the main issue for most towers in my opinion. So, starting with this off with the tac shooter, one of the more meta defining towers on those shorter maps, like Koru for example, where it carries your early game defense most of the time with the blade shooter, which utilizes one of the best cross paths in the game, even faster shooting. But it also has one of the worst cross paths in the game, which is even more tax. So, here's how I'm going to balance the tac shooter. The first change will be to the even faster shooting upgrade, by nerfing it to a 40%, increase attack speed down to a 33% increase of attack speed, which will negatively affect the blade shooter and overdrive, since they use the top path pretty much all the time. And buffing the blade shooter's bottom cross paths blades from +2 blades to +4 blades for each individual upgrade will be a nice change too, since it can act like a high pierce tac sprayer with only a 10% increase of attack speed for $200 in total for upgrading to even more tax. Which will be a good change, because this crosspath has been trash for very long since its existence, and also a buff to overdrive tac's middle crosspath, by making super range tax increase the pierce from 3 to around 6, since it's supposed to be a pierce machine, rather than an attacking machine for potential mid-game rushes with increased range. Lastly, a buff to the tac zone will be nice too, by also making the middle crosspath have 15 pierce instead of 10 with 0, 2, 5, and does +1 extra damage to 45 bloons, which will be cool, and a price reduction down from $24,000 to $20,000 will be a good change too, since it's one of the weaker tier 5 upgrades. This will force players to pretty much utilize other cross-pathing options when using the tac shooter, and we might also see 3-2-0 or 3-0-2 tac shooter being used early game when paired with Gwen for extra pierce for early game versatility, rather than using a 2-3-0 blade shooter to defend pretty much. So I think it's a good change around to the upgrading, and hopefully it should change the playstyles around a little bit. The second tower I do want changed is definitely the glue gunner. Glue has so many garbage upgrades on it, which is why it's unusable in this meta. It's got pretty weak upgrades and imbalanced crosspaths as a whole. So here's how I'm gonna fix glue gunner for the mid-season update. The first change will be reworking the relentless glow upgrade on it, by making it cost $800 more, and allows it to virally stun bloons, like it should in BTD6, while also having camo detection in addition. And another change will be making the 2-0-5 super glue corrosion deal +49 more damage to blimps, because it does 50 damage to them on hit, which might turn it into a damage dealer, rather than your typical support tower for using the 0-2-5 super glue splatter. Thirdly, a change to glue strike and glue storm like in BTD6 would be to the debuffing effect on mob class bloons, by not making you require corrosive glue for the ability to debuff blimps will be a nice change of pace, which means you don't really need to cross path your glue strikes and glue storms for the debuffing effect to take in. And fourthly, a rework to Bloon Liquefier and Bloon Solver will be nice, by making them cost slightly more, and adding acid puddles on popping bloons, like it should in BTD6. This should allow for more versatility with the glue gunner, because the upgrades do need a rework or something to make them viable at least. The next tower that I do want balancing is definitely the Dartling Gunner. It's pretty obvious as to why I want to balance this tower out, even when Ninja Kiwi buffed the weak cross paths on it in the 3.2 update at least. So here's the proper balancing to this infamously known tower in Battles 2. Firstly, I'll address the buckshot cross pathing first. To balance the top path on them all, porting the changes from BTD6 is definitely needed, because it does literally 33% worse than 0, 2, 3 overall, and 2, 0, 5 does more than 50% worse, because laser shock only adds +1 damage, not +6. So addressing that first will hopefully make it somewhat usable in Hall of Masters. Secondly, a buff to the laser cannon will be nice as well, since it doesn't have enough pierce even with 3, 0, 2. So I'll increase the base pierce by a little bit from like 6 to 7, and make the powerful darts crosspath on it have 13 pierce instead of the usual 9, which is around +75% increase of pierce instead of the usual 50%. Lastly, a buff to Plasma Accelerator's powerful darts crosspath is also needed, by making the laser beam width increase doubly instead of the usual 50%, which will be a nice change, as well as making it double the pierce value instead of adding 75% more. Those changes will be nice to mess around since Dartling doesn't have very good cross-pathing options, so we'll have to wait and find out if Ninja Kiwi wants to add the long-awaited changes to the Dartling Gunner. Another tower I do want to be changed is the Monkey Buccaneer. There'll only be one change to it, which is more of a slight rework to one of its gimmicks, which is the aircraft carrier with grape shot crosspath. Despite being used most of the time, I would make the mini planes shoot out grapes like in BTD6 by changing the radial dart attack to this type, but it does reduce the amount of projectiles, but it'll be more consistent at longer range. It would be a nice change to mess around with, but I don't understand why Ninja Kiwi isn't changing this gimmick, since it's a part of the design philosophy of the grape shot crosspath overall. Last tower that's going to be on my buff and rework wish list that I do want happening is with the Wizard Monkey. It's a pretty trash tower overall. It's even getting some buffs in 3.2, but that won't do much. So here's a better improvement for one of the most played towers in the game. I would personally make the Dragon's Breath upgrade cost 2.6k instead of 3k. Because it's too expensive, and it doesn't have the DPS to really take down more brushes, because it just gets ran all over by purple balloons unfortunately. Or maybe increase the damage or fire rate, because it's really lacking the DPS right now, and I would say it's a pretty darn atrocious upgrade overall, because of how weak its defense ability truly is. A small buff to Arcane Spike will be nice. It doesn't really pack enough punch, and it would still struggle to a fortified mob on round 18, when it costs over 10k to purchase. Because of this, I'll just increase the damage it does by +4 against mob class balloons, so that it can perform better in the long run. And if Ninja Kiwi doesn't want to take this direction, then a small price buff will be nice as well, by making it cost around 8.5k instead of 9k to purchase. I think those are the only changes I do want to see happening with the wizard, because I just feel like Dragon's Breath doesn't really pack the same punch as in BTD6, because of the intensity of the balloons overall. So that should be it for the buffs and reworks. Time for the nerfs. The first tower I do want to get nerfed is with the submarine. Submarine has been running rampant on certain maps, mainly because of the pure versatility it has. It's so hard to even take this thing down even in the late game. It's pretty obvious as to what it needs to be nerfed. The first nerf will be to the ballistic missile upgrade, by making it cost $150 more, so that it's a lot harder to afford during a rush. And also a nerf to the amount of damage the first strike does from 7,000 down to maybe 6,500 will be nice. And submarine does have pretty mid tier 5s overall. So I would buff the preemptive strike to 13k first strike damage instead of 10k, to make it a lot better. Those changes might be good, because it should indirectly nerf some of the top loadouts in Hall of Masters. Another tower I do want to see being nerfed is the bomb shooter. Similar to the submarine, it's really strong, mainly because of that cluster bombs upgrade. So it'll be more of a nerf, but also a slight rework on top, starting by nerfing the frag bomb's cross path on the bomb shooter, by making it no longer give the bomb shooter popping power against thermal balloons, which will be a good nerf. But while implementing this nerf, cluster bombs can be reverted back to $800 in price, and maybe rework the recursive cluster so that it deals more damage like in BTD6 would be nice too. And a small price nerf on the balloon impact is definitely going to help, since it uses the middle cross path all the time, which is why it hits so hard. The nerfs will mean that bomb shooter definitely requires Striker Jones or Biker Bones for it to work, and bomb sub farm will no longer be viable after the changes, because you get what I mean, it's too overpowered. The third tower I do want to be nerfed is with the Engineer Monkey. It's a really strong tower, being meta defining on maps like Sun Palace for example is crazy ludicrous for how much value it provides for you, especially if you're running farm. So because of this, I would nerf the balloon trap on the Engineer, by making it only give $900 at maximum when all the AI balloons are trapped and collected from it instead of the usual $1,000 that you get from it against AI balloons, especially against players who run Jericho. It feeds the balloon trap way too much value. And a 10% nerf might be significant enough to impact it for general use. I feel like that's the only nerf I can give for the Engineer, because it's a pretty hard tower to balance overall. The fourth tower I do want to balance and nerf at the same time is the Spike Factory. It's becoming more prevalent as time goes on, especially since it's getting a buff to one of the worst upgrades in the game, long life spikes. I mean, it definitely deserved a buff, but at the same time it's way too overpowering to go up against. I would nerf the smart spikes attack speed duration down to 2 seconds instead, while long life spikes and above will still last more than 2 seconds for cross path balance overall. And also nerfing the spike storm cost to 5.5k instead of 5k, which will make it a little bit harder to set it up in stone. Those changes will be good, since it's pretty darn strong of a tower that is good into late game, because of the sheer amounts of damage it can dish out from spike storms. It'll make it slightly more inefficient, but it'll at least make it a tad bit balanced in my opinion. The penultimate tower that I want to address balancing is to do with the banana farm. Banana farm has been running rampant for a very long time in the Hall of Masters meta, which is why it's such a strong tower, because it allows you to play more aggressively towards opponents, hoping you force a tower boost out of them, and then re-rush them with a Regen Rainbow Rush of Doom and you win, which is pretty overpowered in my opinion. The only nerfs I would do to farm is maybe tone down the efficiency of Monkey Wall Street to $9,000 end of round cash, which will be a nice change, because it's very efficient, and also to the banana salvage upgrade, making the sellback value go down to just a 5% increase will be a pretty significant nerf as well. Those changes will make farm at least balanced, but not too brain dead as it used to in the previous metas in all of battles too. So I'm pretty much done with the balanced wish list. Be sure to subscribe, like and turn on notifications bell to support me, and comment down below if you like those type of videos and you want to see more of them in the future. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to use the code RELOVERUSER in the Battles 2 or BTD6 shop to support me even further for every in-game purchase you make. Don't forget to join my Discord server for upcoming news, and we'll see you vivacious guys in the next video. Adios.